The time is now for the Dr. Bob Sports Podcast. I am Tanner. I am our head of analytics, and for the past 7 years, I've been working alongside Bob, originating our NFL and college basketball bets. And today, as always, I'm joined by our digital media specialist, Grant. We're back in the saddle.
Yes, we are. We are back on the horse, and I'm so happy that we get a podcast again. I've been missing it ever since football season. We had to watch my Kansas City Chiefs go back to back, huh? Yeah, that was an exciting one, and it looks like they might be preparing for that three-peat here.
I know they tagged Snead, they re-signed Jones, the Hollywood Browns signing. It's looking like the Chiefs are all in to go for back to back to back.
I'm excited for that, but it is not NFL time anymore. We've got college basketball. It's March Madness. So the conference tournaments went very well. We went 27-19 on best bets, which is putting us at 282, 221, and 7, which is 56% for plus 38.4 stars on the season.
Yeah, it's been another profitable college basketball year here at Dr. Bob Sports. And I would take this moment to shout out Jay for all of his hard work, helping me stay up to date on all 362 schools. That guy's a machine. Glad he's on our team. And Jay and I have been going back and forth, looking at lineups every morning since November. So it just feels great to be here with a bracket in front of us in March.
Yeah, you guys are absolute beast and we appreciate it. But you can also subscribe to the March Madness package at drbobsports.com for just $275.
Mm-hmm. And that'll include all of our NCAA tournament bets, plus possibly some NIT. We usually have a few NIT bets sprinkled in there, but I think the most valuable part of that package is the tournament simulation, which incorporates Bob's team ratings, which have been proven to be better than the market. He's 55% since 2004, and even better recently, 57% since 2015. Now, the simulation also takes into account matchup profiles between these teams and all the permutations that could happen in the bracket, plus proximity to campus for each site that they might play in and other significant NCAA tournament angles that we've identified throughout the years.
Yeah, what exactly does that sim look like when you send it out to clients?
Well, we can put up last year's sim on the screen right now. It's just a Google sheet with the percent chance of each team to advance to each round. And along with the sim, we'll also provide an email with analysis on advice on where to be contrarian depending on the size of your field. So last year, we told people to fade number one seeds Alabama and Kansas, and neither of them made it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I remember you guys were also saying to fade Marquette, and they lost to that 7 seed Michigan State in the second round.
Yep, we were on that Marquette fade last year. We had a best bet on Michigan State in that second round game, I can remember. Another one that we had in that bracket analysis email was FAU over Memphis as the best round one leverage pick because all the public bracket percentages were taking Memphis.
Yeah, I cannot wait to get into the bracket here. We'll talk some Cinderella candidates as well as a long shot for the Final Four, and we've got a long shot national championship bet.
Yep, but we're going to start today by going through all the number one and number two seeds, since those 8 squads combined to win the tournament about 75% of the time.
All right, well, let's head over to the East region where we have the number 1 seed, UConn. This is last year's champion, and they had another incredible season so far as they got their first number 1 overall seed in program history, and they just won the Big East tournament title for the first time since 2011.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's pretty much no flaws with this team, and they're underrated by their metrics because Klingon has gotten less than half their minutes this season. He's arguably the best rim protector in the country with an 11.3% block rate. They've got that go-to guard that you want in March in Tristan Newton, who can create his own bucket when offense breaks down late in the shot clock. I mean, Connecticut's going to hammer you on the offensive glass. They've got shooters. Spencer and Caravan are both over 40% from three.
Yeah, I mean, these guys only had 3 losses the entire season.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at those 3 losses, one in Allen Fieldhouse without 5-star freshman Stephon Castle, at Seton Hall, and at Creighton when the Blue Jays made 14 threes. So I think you could certainly excuse all 3 losses. I think it's just going to take another incredible shooting performance like we saw with Creighton to beat these guys. Not saying it can't happen. I mean, they're more likely than not to not win the national title, but that's what it's going to take. They're probably the safest bet there is to make the Final Four. And Bob has them rated as one of the best teams of the last decade going into the tournament. Now, you look at it, they arguably got hosed because while they're one of the best teams we've seen in a long time, they get one of the best 4 seeds we've seen in a long time. Bob has Auburn rated as the 3rd best team in the country. But the reason that UConn will be feeling a little bit better is because they would get a potential game with Auburn in Boston. It's a semi-home game. There'll be a ton of Husky fans in attendance there, and I would expect UConn to be about a 6-point favorite in that game, but still crazy to see that the committee gave Auburn in UConn's region.
Yeah, I mean, this region is super tough. There's another team here that people are saying should have been a 1 seed or could have been another 1 seed, and that is right here, the 2 seed Iowa State. I mean, they're coming off a dominant 69-41 Big 12 tournament championship win over Houston, and the Cyclones have won 11 of their last 13 games, and they're going to be looking to avenge their first round upset as a 6 seed last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this team's overachieved, right? Unranked in the preseason poll, but Otzelberger's defense has just been incredible at ball screen trapping, post denial, anchored by Robert Jones and Hassan Ward, 2 of the best big defenders in the country. And this defense forces you to just continually move the ball around and take threes, which potential second round opponent Drake sneaky does.
Yeah, that game would be incredible. 2 Iowa teams battling off in Omaha. I mean, the place would be packed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Tucker DeVries might be the best player on the court in that game. No disrespect to Tamin Lipsey, who has taken a big step up offensively in his sophomore season, and Iowa State's going to need him to carry them at times during this tournament like he did in that comeback win on senior night against BYU. And the Cyclones will also be leaning on Keyshawn Gilbert, who has the ability to put up points in bunches like we saw in that Big 12 semifinal against Baylor.
All right, well, let's shift it over to the South region of this bracket, and we've got their number 1 seed, Houston. And in their first year in the Big 12, they won the regular season title, but ran out of gas in the tournament after yet another injury. This will be their 2nd straight year as a 1 seed, and they'll be looking to avenge their crushing Sweet 16 loss to Miami.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they bowed out of that Big 12 tournament, but I think they were just trying to get out there alive after Juwan Roberts went down. He made that made the 3rd rotation player for the Cougars out, and they just rolled over in that title game. Now, Kelvin Sampson said that Roberts, it's nothing structural wrong with Roberts. It's just a bruise, and he'll be good to go for the tournament. And so with Roberts in the lineup, the other 2 guys that have been out, Terrence Arsenio and Joseph Tugler, those guys are only worth about a point to our metrics. The reason we saw the bottom fall out is because when Roberts went out, Houston just didn't have the depth to play without 3 rotation guys. But they've shown the ability to play without 2 rotation guys. And I'd make this team, a 3.5 point dog to UConn, but they're clearly the 2nd best squad in the field by our ratings, led on offense by Jamal Shed and LJ Cryer, who can get buckets in that backcourt.
Yeah, and we actually just sent out an opinion to clients this morning on Houston minus 23.5 against Longwood.
Yeah, Longwood won the Big South with physicality, right? I mean, they bang inside, 12th best offensive rebounding rate in the country. They only had a 28% 3-point rate. It's just big guys, playing volleyball off the glass. But you can't out physical Houston with a Big South team. And we saw Griff Aldridge's team lose by 32 to a similarly physical high major Tennessee team in the 22 tournament. And I would expect to see something similar here for Longwood. So yeah, you're right. We did send out an opinion on Houston minus 23.5.
All right, well, let's look at the number 2 seed here. We've got Marquette, and they finished 2nd in the Big East, and they're coming off a Big East championship loss to UConn. They are now 6-4 in their last 10, and they haven't gotten past the round of 32 since 2013. I mean, the big question here is the status of Tyler Kolek.
Well, it looks like Tyler Kolek is going to be good to go for the tournament, and he'll be worth about 1.5 to Marquette, according to our metrics. It's impressive that Marquette made it to the championship of the Big East without Kolek. But he should be back here. And if he's, running at full cylinders, this first round game against Western Kentucky is set up perfectly for Tyler Kolek to go off, because Western Kentucky is one of the most consistent under-screening defenses in the nation. If you go under screen for Tyler Kolek, he is going to rain from 3. And if Marquette is able to get out of that first round game, then they could face a Florida team that just lost center Micah Handlegan to a broken leg. So that could mean, like you said, that they could get to the second weekend for the first time since 2013. And head coach Shaka Smart hasn't made the second weekend since his 2011 VCU team. So it's setting up well for the Golden Eagles here. And when they do make the Sweet 16, they might be playing a Texas Tech team that's been struggling without big Warren Washington. So, they face Florida without their center, Texas Tech with a banged up center. So it's looking like a decent path for Marquette as long as Tyler Kolek is all right. And that remains to be seen.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see how that one shakes out. But let's go over to the West region of the bracket. And we've got the number 1 seed there. North Carolina looking to make their first appearance since losing the national championship game 2 years ago. The Tar Heels won the ACC regular season title, but they fell short in their tournament to rival NC State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really don't trust Hubert in late game situations, but I do trust RJ Davis, who should be a first-team All-American in his senior season, and Armando Bacot is one of the best bigs in the country. So those two guys were obviously key cogs in that Tar Heels run a couple of years ago, and they're back here to kind of anchor and score for this offense. The defense is going to do the typical North Carolina stuff where they don't force turnovers, but they're also not going to give you second chances along the glass. So you've got Bacot down there, Harrison Ingram, Jalen Withers. All those guys are elite rebounders in the front court. Now, that being said, I think North Carolina is clearly the weakest number 1 seed. And we'll talk later about ways to get creative in this region for your pool to get a little bit contrarian from the people you're playing against.
All right, well, let's look at the number 2 seed here. We've got Arizona, and under third-year head coach Tommy Lloyd, the Wildcats are 86-19, but they've been upset by the number 15 seed Princeton, and then the year before they were upset by the number 5 seed Houston.
Yeah, and they averaged just 58 points in those two losses, which is way low for a Tommy Lloyd team that loves to run. They just struggled to score in the half court in the tournament when the game slows down and the transition buckets aren't as easy for them. And Oregon showed the blueprint of how you can mix in zones and confuse this team in the half court when they beat them in the Pac-12 tournament. And I think that's one of the reasons they brought in Caleb Love this season, because he can get his own bucket in the half court, but he's one of the most erratic players in the country and liable for poor shot selection at any point. And they don't really have much shooting outside of Caleb Love and Boswell, which could hurt them against zone teams. And they face a zone team right off the bat with Dan Munson's 1-2-1-1 diamond zone press.
Yeah, that Dan Munson story is crazy. I mean, they just fired him before the conference tournament, and then he goes out, wins the conference tournament, and he's got the beach and the dance for the first time since 2012.
Yeah, no, what do you do now? It's like, you hold on to Munson. You just told him you were going to fire him, but he's going dancing. So I don't know. I think this will be the last season for Munson. It could be the last game for Munson. That'd be a crazy upset if they took out Arizona. But they got a shot, because if they force Arizona to shoot, Arizona doesn't like to shoot. And this zone could force them to shoot. Another defense that would force Arizona to shoot is Nevada, that runs a pack line defense. And that could spell trouble for Arizona if the Wolfpack are able to beat Dayton in round 1. So the first two opponents that Arizona will face will force them to shoot in the half court, and that's not Arizona's strength. So we could see another early exit for Tommy Lloyd's team.
Yeah, I don't know. The 2 versus 15 back-to-back years would be crazy, but let's shift it over to the Midwest region of this bracket. And we've got the number 1 team there, Purdue, coming off their second Big Ten regular season title, but they were just upset by Wisconsin in the semifinal of their tournament. So if you remember last year, Purdue was only the second number 1 seed to ever lose to a 16 seed. And you look back, the only other team that happened to was Virginia. And then next year they followed it up with a national championship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's much of the same, right? This year, the offense, once again, running through Zach Edey, 33% usage rate, top 15 in the country. And when they put it in to Edey, he can kick it out to Braden Smith, Lance Jones, Fletcher Lawyer, Mason Gillis. Those 4 combined to shoot 218 for 518 from 3, 42% because of all that attention down low on Edey.
Yeah, I feel like the big question here has enough changed, or has anything changed from last year to make us think they can make a deep run now?
Well, First off, they're not starting two true freshmen in the backcourt, right? So Lawyer and Smith are now another year of experience under their belt. And if you remember, they had 10 turnovers against Fairleigh Dickinson. And also, our metrics have Lance Jones, the Southern Illinois transfer, 1.7 points better than what Ethan Morton was giving them in that spot last year. So the concern for Purdue, I think, is that Edey is not going to draw as many fouls, as the refs are going to swallow their whistle more in the NCAA tournament. But I think this chance is a solid, this team has a solid chance to make the Final Four.
Do you have any concerns about that Braden Smith injury that happened in the conference tournament?
It looks like it's just a knee bone bruise. He was able to gut through it, although those kind of linger a little bit, right? So we're going to maybe make a half-point adjustment to Purdue for the opening weekend. Shouldn't come into play for the first game, but it might be a factor against Utah State or TCU. Nothing major, but maybe 1 to 2% of win probability.
All right, well, let's look at the number 2 seed here. We've got Tennessee, and this is the SEC regular season champion, but they were shocked in the quarterfinals of their tournament, but they had an incredible season on the back of Dalton Connect, and we actually gave out them to make the Final Four at 10-1 on October 20th, but now these odds are down to plus 325, so we've got some good value here, and we're going to be rooting big time for the Vols.
Yeah. I hope you guys were listening to that. I think it might have been the NFL Week 7 or 8 podcast when we put in the Tennessee future, and we were really high on this team going into the year. But Dalton Connect exceeded all of our expectations. We talked at the time about how we didn't think he'd be a downgrade from Olivier Kamwa, who transferred to Michigan, but Connect turned out to be an All-American. And Tennessee really tried to solve some of their offensive woes this year by really speeding up the tempo. So the Vols had a 15.8 second average possession length, 24th fastest in the country, compared to last year, 18.2 seconds, which was 246. So they were like, we can't score in the half court sets. So we're just going to try and get out in transition. Really, their answer in the half court this year has just been Connect trying to create anything that he can. And Tennessee's defense remains elite. So they're going to go as far as their Northern Colorado transfer can take them, but Connect can't afford to have a 4 for 17 game from the field like he did versus Mississippi State in the SEC tournament.
No, he cannot afford to do that, but let's shift it over to my favorite type of bets. We've got these first round upsets, and what do you see coming right here on the horizon?
Well, yeah, so we're going to look at money lines in the first round that you could play to root for some Cinderellas. The first one we're going to go with is Morehead State plus 550.
Yeah, they're going up against Illinois, who's coming off a Big Ten tournament win, a championship win, but they haven't gotten past the second round of the tournament since 2006.
Yeah, and Morehead State's going to slow this game down to a crawl. They average nearly 20 seconds per offensive possession, among the 10 slowest in the country. And they're going to try and increase variance with a 45% three-point rate. And Riley Minix fits the profile of a go-to guy in March to lead a Cinderella. He was an NCAA All-American last year. He led Southeastern to 3 national championship appearances in his 4 seasons in the NCAA, and he had a smooth transition stepping up to D1. He finished top 10 in the Ohio Valley in scoring, rebounding, field goal percentage, free throw percentage, blocks, and steals. He led the conference with 18 double-doubles and was named OVC Player of the Year. And this matchup looks pretty good for Riley Minix because Illinois' drop coverage defense is going to give you open mid-range looks. And Minix shot 51% on mid-range this season. That's 17th in the nation for those with at least 100 mid-range attempts.
Yeah, I mean, Minix is coming off of 72 points in the 3 conference tournament games, so I think this is going to be exciting to watch, but it looks like you have a post-hype sleeper for our next pick.
Yeah, I feel like going into last year's tournament, everyone was all over Pat Kelsey's squad, but this year, I think they've got a good chance at making an upset. Charleston plus 400 over Alabama.
I like that. I mean, the Cougars ended their season on a 12-game win streak, and they've won back-to-back CAA conference tournament championships.
And them and Alabama rank 16th and 19th, respectively, in the country in three-point rate. So this game is going to be extremely high variance just from a shooting perspective because both teams are going to take so many threes. So let's lean in. We want to lean into the underdog money line in that scenario. Now, the concern is this is not going to be a low possession game, which would reduce the variance. Which would increase the variance. It has the chance to be one of the fastest tournament games in recent history. Because, I mean, both these teams love to get up and go. I could see 80 possessions in this game. Bama's defense, not very impressive. We've certainly seen better defenses in the Nate Oates era. Grant Nelson has done bad replacing Charles Bediako as the rim protector, as the defense dropped 100 spots from last year. And the entire starting five are basically mid-major up transfers besides Nick Pringle. So I don't think Bama's really going to out-athlete Charleston here. I think it's worth taking a look on the money line, just under the premise that Charleston gets hot and Alabama has a shooting night like they did in the loss versus San Diego State in last year's tournament when they went 3 for 27 from downtown.
All right, well, looking at this next one, I think it's going to make Big Blue Nation a little upset, but what is it?
Yeah, we've got Oakland plus 700.
Yeah, that would make history, as the Grizzlies have never made it out of the round of 64, but Kentucky hasn't made it past the first weekend of games since 2019.
Yeah, this is Cal's fastest team since he had a backcourt of De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk. These cats fly up and down the court, and they don't play much defense. They're led by the speed of guard, Rob Dillingham, and Reed Shepherd is shooting 53% from three. That will regress. Now, I'm not agreed with Cal's rotation selections this year. He's giving way too many minutes to DJ Wagner. I think just based on his recruiting profile, and not enough to Justin Edwards. Edwards has a 56% effective field goal compared to Wagner's 47%. Edwards turns the ball over less than Wagner and gives them more length and perimeter defense. So I'd kind of like Kentucky if they just cut Wagner's minutes out, but I don't think they're going to do that.
So how can Oakland make Kentucky's a little bit more uncomfortable and maybe make Big Blue Nation start calling for Cal's job?
Well, there's two things that they can do. The first is Oakland runs that Greg Kampe zone, which could be tough for Kentucky's young guards to diagnose. We saw Kentucky lose both games against Texas A&M this season when they forced the Wildcats to shoot over them. The other thing that Oakland's going to do is muck this game up. They're 307th in average possession length on offense, so they're not going to play the track meet that Kentucky wants to play. And Oakland has some guys that can get hot from deep in Blake Lampin and Jack Golke, who has 10 games this season with at least 5 threes.
All right, well, there's a 4-pack of Cinderella money lines, and we only need one of those to hit to be profitable. But do you have a Final Four long shot that could distinguish people in larger pools if they want to take maybe UConn as a champ?
Yeah, I wouldn't blame people for wanting to take UConn as the champ. We talked about Auburn being a little bit of a concern just because of how good of a 4 seed that is. But this Connecticut team is really one of the best teams we've seen in the last decade. Now, if you do take UConn as a champ, you're going to have to do some other things in your bracket to distinguish yourself, because so many other people are going to take UConn as a champ. So I think where to do that is in the West region. And I would take St. Mary's at 10-1 to get out of the West region, because I do not like the top seeds here. We touched on North Carolina and Arizona. They rely on transition to score, and those offenses can stall when everything slows down in the tournament. Same with Alabama. And if St. Mary's plays them, St. Mary's defense is well suited to stop that. They are second percentile in transition rate allowed. So they don't let anyone run against them. That's why they went 2-1 against Gonzaga this year. And remember, UNC would have not made the title game 2 years ago without some outrageous shooting from Caleb Love in the half court. He made 6 threes in that Sweet 16 comeback versus UCLA when their win prob was down to 14%, and Love went 11 for 20 in the Final Four versus Duke. UNC doesn't have him on the roster anymore, and I'm skeptical he can repeat a performance like that on contested shots for Arizona.
Yeah, but what about the 3-seed Baylor?
Well, for them, the thing that I'm concerned about is the defense. They're outside of the top 50, and I think just unreliable. They ask too much of a 4-star freshman, Yves Missy. So I think Baylor, I wouldn't be opposed to taking them in your pool to get out of this region. I certainly like them more than the other top 4 seeds, but St. Mary's is the one I want to lean into here, because I don't think anyone is going to have St. Mary's in your pool to make the Final Four. And unlike the other teams we've talked about, St. Mary's is super comfortable playing in the half court. They're the 4th slowest offense in the country. And they'll also be all right if the refs swallow their whistles, not wanting to affect the outcome of the tournament games. St. Mary's only relies on 15% of their points from the line. You look at UNC, 21% of their points from the line. Arizona, 19%. Baylor, 21%. Alabama, 20%. St. Mary's has guards that can score from the outside in Aiden Mahaney and Alex Dukas, and Saxon is a solid scorer on the interior.
I like that. Well, is there anything else you want to touch on before we go?
Let's talk about Kansas, who many have left for dead. Samford, going to be one of the most popular first-round upset picks, but I think there's a really wide range of outcomes for this Jayhawks team, and I think that they're worth a national title look at 33-1.
Yeah, of course you think that there's a good value there on Kansas, huh?
Yeah, full disclosure, Kansas is my alma mater, but that means I've watched a ton of this team this season, and I've noticed basically the two important factors that have this team possibly much better than their metrics, which would tell you that this is the second worst team of the Big 12 era. The reason that I think that there's upside for this Jayhawks team is that Kevin McCullar missed 6 games, and they didn't put in Australian freshman Johnny Furphy in the starting lineup until January 13th. Remember, Elmarco Jackson was terrible for this team in the non-con. Now, if you look at the 5-man lineup, KJ Adams, Hunter Dickinson, Johnny Furphy, DeJuan Harris, Kevin McCullar. That team, Evan Miyakawa, has as a plus 38 adjusted efficiency margin in 486 possessions. For reference, UConn is a plus 29.5. So you can see with those 5 on the court, this team can compete with anyone in the country. And the reason that we haven't seen it is because, Kevin McCullar has been in and out of the lineup all year. He got hurt in late January, and he's been back and forth, but now he's got 2 weeks rest. And Bill Self expects Hunter Dickinson to be at full speed for the NCAA tournament. Him sitting out of the Big 12 tournament was just precautionary. The preseason AP poll has predictive power in the NCAA tournament. This team came into the season ranked number 1. That speaks to the talent, just like I'm saying. So assuming everyone's healthy, I think Kansas has about a 6% chance of winning the title. Now, no guarantee that everyone's healthy. We certainly have not seen that in the back half of conference play, which is why I wouldn't be shocked to see them go out to Samford in the first round. But when we're playing a long shot national title, we want to look at a team that can actually win it from the deep, from the 33-1 range. I mean, look at this team. When you look at the talent of the top 5, this team can win a national title.
Yeah, it kind of disgusts me to agree with you there, but you make a lot of good points. And last time that you told me personally, bet on KU, they won the national championship, and I absolutely faded you. So, gosh, well, I think that will do it for this show. And best of luck to everyone betting in March Madness. Don't forget to check out drbobsports.com, where you can purchase our NCAA tournament package for just $275, which includes all of our bets through the Final Four and the tournament simulation to help you fill out your bracket and some advice on which teams to use based on the size of your pool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, that's it. We'll see you guys this summer when we ramp back up for those NFL preview pods. I already can't wait. I feel like free agency has got me already ready for the NFL to be back. But thanks to everyone who tuned in this year for the podcast debut season, and we will see you guys this summer.